Welcome to Attitude of Altitude podcast presented by Planet of One. This podcast is designed to inspire change in people to become the best versions of themselves and live their best lives. We share stories of struggle and success to encourage and empower listeners to be bold, take action, and be the change we desire to see in this world. We are all part of this planet. We are all a planet of one. Know that your attitude determines your altitude in life. Welcome to the podcast. Hello and welcome to Attitude of Altitude. Our guest today is one of my favorite people, Marijane Relth. And when I asked her for a bio of how she would like me to introduce her, I'm going to let you have her own reply of what she said because she's just impeccable in who she is. Marijane, welcome. Please, I'm going to let you have the floor. Tell them what you told me when I asked you for a bio.
Well, okay, thank you very much. And you're one of my favorite people, as you know. Okay, so Rima asked me for a bio, and I said, I avoid that question like the plague over the years when people have asked, how am I going to introduce you? You're a guest speaker. And I always say the same thing. How about just my name? I mean, honestly, I don't brand myself. I'm not the big, here's who I am. Here's what I've done. I'll just show up and we'll just talk. So here I am.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Okay.
I wanted our listeners to kind of get to know you and get to see who you are and how you've become the Marijane that we know today and love. Take us through how you started in your fashion career and what it meant to you and just take us through all of that. Because I know you, so it's easy for me, but I want the listeners to understand how you've been in this industry for how many years now?
Okay. Well, to answer that question, this is my 50th fashion season to date myself. And there's 2 seasons a year. So for sure been in the fashion industry through the direct selling or social selling as it's known now through that channel for 25 years. But how I ended up here, Rima, you've heard me say it before. I don't think any of us grow up thinking, I'm going to be a direct selling professional. I'm going to go to college and learn how to do that. No, most of us are accidental, and that was definitely my journey. The irony of being in fashion is that I actually grew up with a mother that was in fashion. I don't know if you knew that part.
I did not know that.
So my mom was in fashion, and although my girlfriends thought that was the coolest thing, when it's your mother, you're like, really? You're listening to what she has to say? Seriously? I mean, it just was funny. And she used to come to school in junior high and high school and teach classes. And, of course, those would be the days that I would ditch because the last thing you want is to be in class with your mom. But so I just decided early on that I had no interest in fashion because that was back in the day, dating myself here, that was back in the day when John Robert Powers was a really big deal. In fact, my mom wrote the manual for John Robert Powers, and I didn't want anything to do with fashion back then because it was all about what was on the outside. I mean, it really was. It was a huge pressure that I saw from my mom on, really her worth being connected to what she looked like. And that isn't the truth, So I did what most daughters do, and I ran as far away from fashion as I could. I actually went into the kind of the legal field, and I was a court reporter for 21 years and absolutely loved it. And in fact, I really thought that I would do that my whole career. It was very challenging intellectually. It was just, I worked for myself and had my own agencies. And so always been a kind of a serial entrepreneur by default. We have 4 kids. Steve and I have 4 kids. And I always told my kids that I was unemployable by design. Do not hire me. But because I think I'm meant to just do my own thing, So early on, I learned from a lady that was a court reporter when I was in high school, and probably the most likely not to succeed. And I really say that in a very honest way. I mean, not self-deprecating at all. I was not interested in school on any level. And I met an older lady that she was a court reporter. And I said, oh, now what is that? And why did you pick it? And all I remember is she said, you don't have a boss, you make a lot of money, and you can live anywhere. And I'm like, ding, ding, ding. So after high school, I went into a trade school, and that was the end of that story. So I did that for 21 years. And like I said, I loved it and really thought I would do it my whole life. But as you know, sometimes God has other plans for us that we would never have imagined. So I was over at a girlfriend's house one night when I was 39, just getting ready to turn 40. I had a very full life, owning my own business, 4 kids, in sports. They were all in sports in 2 different cities, and I was the head of our women's ministry back then, the evening. My life was full. I wasn't looking. But I went to her girlfriend's house one night for wine and cheese. And they were some of my friends from high school. And this girl showed up, and she pulled out these jewelry trays. It was a home show. But I had never been to one. I never saw anything like that. And all of a sudden, I saw the dynamics in this room change. And I looked at my girlfriend sitting next to me, who was a stay-at-home mom. We'd been friends our whole life. And I said, what's going on here? I mean, what is this what women do? And she started laughing. She goes, oh, yeah, we shop and socialize. And in that moment, when I wasn't looking for anything, I just said, wow, maybe this is something I could do with my then 11-year-old daughter, who Leah, who's now 36. Okay. And so I walked up to the girl and I said, I'm not really looking for a job, but sign me up if this is something other people can do. And that in that just knee-jerk moment, when I had no intention of leaving my career, I just thought it would be like a mommy me time, and I could, like being a serial entrepreneur, I thought, raise the kids up to know how to make money. And anyway, that was it. And 3 months later, I removed the net and walked away from a 21-year career. People thought I had lost my mind. Plus, because at that time, that was during the first recession here in San Diego. And Steve's in real estate, as you know, a fabulous husband, ladies, named Steve. I always say I'm sorry to all of you because I got the last good one. But he's in real estate, which is code for unemployed during a recession. And he sells land. So the reality is that he could go years without a paycheck sometimes. So when I removed the net, it was with his blessing, because I was the sole income earner at that time. And it wasn't like I had made money after 3 months, but what happened unexpectedly is that I just started learning about the industry of direct selling. I just steeped myself in everything I could read about it. And that was like before the internet. Back in this, I had to read stone tablets to learn anything. And I just started learning about it, and I thought, wow, even though I'm not looking, this is like a window that I'm probably supposed to go through, or a door I'm supposed to go through, because it had all the elements of what I believe is wired into the DNA of a woman. We're natural born networkers, we're nurturers, we want to live on priority instead of someone else's, punching a time clock. Our life is just, we want our lives as women to be very homogenous and fluid. And if you're a career woman, or at least back then, a career woman, it was like your life was in all these different silos. You had your work life, your professional life, your philanthropic life, your church life. It didn't feel like it all flowed. And so I intuitively, I think, the little quiet voice in me said, this is how you can live a very homogenized life. And gosh, I'm just so grateful, So accidentally, I got into it all those years ago, and I'm a career builder, never looked back. And as our mutual friend always says to me, direct sales has allowed you to play your best game. And that's what I would say to anybody, if you're looking for something, a profession that really allows you to play your best game, whatever that is for you, this is it. So, yeah.
I love what you said. And the 2 things that really struck me is, number one is you listen to your intuition. You listened to what was going on inside you and what made you go in the right direction. And you did your research. Back then, when there was no internet, you did your research. So those are two key elements that I think a lot of people miss, listening to their own intuition and then doing their research on what it is that they're going to. Now, I know that you started there. How many companies in fashion and direct sales have you grown through?
Yeah. That's a great way to say it too, Rima, because I run into women and men who feel like if they're not with the first company they were with, that there was some kind of failure to that. And I always say, well, gosh, if you just keep failing forward, you're going to end up in just the best possible position, right? You're not afraid of perfection. You're just learning. Everything is a learning or an earning opportunity, as you remember I always used to say. So I was in jewelry. That was the door that opened for me. But quickly after that, for multiple reasons, I knew that the fashion end of beauty and fashion was where I wanted to be. So I stayed with jewelry for a very, a nanosecond. In fact, I was with John and Cookie Lee when they were brand new. If some of your listeners might remember that company. And I went into fashion with a company that was called Weekenders back in the day. They were a Canadian company that was in 7 different countries. So I was part of the US division. And that was just a great ride. Part of the reason that I wanted to migrate over to fashion clothing and have stayed is because there's a lot of things that people might not think about working with women in clothing, is that it's a very immediate and intimate access into a woman's life. There's this correlation between what a woman puts on and how she feels about herself, how we show up in life, and just helping her put her best foot forward. So we know that psychologically, that's how programs like the Look Good, Feel Good program came about. Women recovering faster from cancer and all kinds of things. When they looked good, their body actually healed faster. There is a scientific connection and psychological connection. So working with clothing gave me a really broad breadth of appeal. I could work with a lot of philanthropies. I do fashion philanthropy, as you know, with big fashion shows where you've always been my wingman, and we can raise money for women whose lives have been interrupted. We can, all of those things. So I stay with fashion. So I was with Weekenders, and in that company, I was fortunate enough to grow a really large organization. And I'm very proud to say, because this doesn't have to do with me, I mean, I'm a part of it, but it really is a reflection of the women that attracted other women. And so we had the #1 organization in the United States for many years. And I got to work alongside those superstars who are still friends today, So that was great. And, but that company, with no warning, one Monday morning, June 2008, to be exact, one Monday morning, that the music stopped, and we did not know what was happening, but the company closed its doors in that moment on a Monday morning in all 7 countries, literally just over and over. So, done and done. And so that was probably the most surprising, fascinating situation of my professional life, because I myself was leading obviously hundreds in my group, but I had become kind of a leader to the leaders. And so I was leading women who also had organizations the size of mine. And that was very interesting. And we landed on our feet. I think that one of my superpowers, to be honest, I will say this, because we're all wired together with a different gift mix, so again, nothing I can take credit for, but I listen to, and I will own it. And that is that one of my superpowers is that I'm super calm in what other people would think is a crisis. I just am a clear thinker. and don't go to panic. So in that moment, I thought, all right, well, this is going to be fascinating because everyone's income stopped completely. And at that time, we had a lot of women that were making significant six-figure incomes and were maybe sole support of their family, or I had a lot of single moms in my group, obviously sole support. So that in direct selling, you can't just the next day go to another company and build again at that level of income. It's going to take years, So anyway, we landed on our feet. That was the first company. I led in a leadership way. I led with, all of Oh, the Places You'll Go by Dr. Seuss. And I have a wall hanging in my office here. The morning that happened, my daughter Leah, who now at this time was working full time for me, she was my right-hand person and she worked here at the house every day. And so when that happened, she made this beautiful art project that hangs on the wall, and she copied the words of that book, Oh, the Places You'll Go, and she brought it over on vellum, and it hangs on my wall today because she thought there's nothing I can say other than, here you go. That there's so much wisdom in Dr. Seuss in that story. And so that's how we got through it. We have brains in our feet. I mean, brains in our feet. We've got brains in our head and feet in our shoes. We can go any old way we choose. And it talks about, sometimes you'll get in a slump, and then slumping yourself is not easy to do. And we just talked about the wisdom in that over and over and over again, and found our groove again with a company, thank goodness, Jockey International, who had just started a direct selling division, and they were big enough. They flew me back to Kenosha, where they're based, and I said, if you're going to take us on, you got to take on Canada. And they said, oh, we're not opening Canada. I said, well, then you can't have us because you need to take the Canadians too. And they opened that division, brought in a new designer, Sunil Ramchandani, who of course is a great friend of ours now. And they had the wherewithal to take hundreds of us at the same time. And so we had a second chapter there with Jockey, and that was a great run. And that's when we met through those Jockey years, right? I remember every day. I remember the ladies and gentlemen, and I don't know what your listener base is, but I remember the very day I met our little Rima here. And her superpower is that she's a collector of people, as you all probably know. And there's just something so magnetic about her that once she crosses your path or you cross hers, you're going to be friends for life. She's the real deal. So she kind of came by my booth at the Del Mar Fairgrounds, came by several times, and I thought, oh, this little one, I'm just going to bring her right in under the wing. And here we are today.
That was quite a ride.
It's quite a ride. And I told Rima, I'm so proud of her. This is what she envisioned doing, even when I first met her. This is it. You're living your dream right now.
Yes, I am. The fact that we get to actually interact with a variety of people and really make an impact in their life in any significant way is quite amazing.
Yeah.
I really want you to take us through how you rally yourself up and how you rally your troops, your friends, for them to also pick themselves up, because even now you're in a different company with Cabby, and you have built a team again in the States, Canada, and I believe Europe too?
In the UK.
In the UK. So take us through that process. When things aren't going well, then you go, okay, let's go, let's get it going. I want people to understand the mindset and the feeling of a leader, because you're responsible for you, but you also take on a whole gamma of women and their families.
Well, honestly, it's a very simple answer. A lot of people don't know this except for the ones that are very close to me, as you would know. And that is that I have a big life with a lot of connections around the world that I feel very blessed about. But the truth is, I'm a super quiet girl. I'm a really quiet girl. I'm not an accidental leader, but I'm an unlikely leader. I didn't grow up with girls. I grew up with all brothers. I always say I was raised in the wilds by boys that, weren't easy on me. And their philosophy was, if you can't die doing it, it's not worth doing. So, so I kind of grew up very rough and tumble. I did not understand the whole emotional side of women so much. I try to lead through logic and let the emotions sit over there. I mean, I know that we're wired as women to have emotions, but if we can look at our business through a lens of logic, we're always going to be better. So the way that I stay inspired myself is that I'm very quiet. I take a lot of time unplugged every single day. As I've been in this industry over 25 years, the hardest thing to watch is how noisy the world has gotten. And as much as we all enjoy the gifts of social media and technology, being able to connect the way we do even today, like this on Zoom, there's a lot of blessings in that, but I've seen more detriment. I've seen women just turn their brain onto the spin cycle, not even tapping into, not just not listening to their inner voice, but not even knowing what their own inner voice sounds like, because they're just listening to all the noise. I don't do that. I don't do that. I get onto social media and do what I need to do, and I am off. That's just not where my life lives. So a lot of time in the quiet. I'm a big walker and a bike rider. I'm an outdoor girl, and I see my leadership lessons in nature. I always have. That's just where I hear the still quiet voice that says, this is the way, walk in it. And so I lead that way. I do not fret about anything. I mean, I literally don't. It's just not part of my DNA. I always say to people, that are more of the worry types, it's just easier in my head. I'm a big picture person. We're playing a long game here. So that part's easy. When it comes to leading, as this season, I think I told you, Rima, this was one of the most challenging leadership seasons of my entire career, because as we all went into COVID together, we all felt that feeling of who moved my cheese, at the same time. Or, a funny way of thinking about it is every one of us was a kindergartner the first day of school trying to figure out where our cubby is. It was just a hot mess. And I've got women in 3 different countries who are all a hot mess, And then we needed to migrate over to this virtual platform. I mean, we're used to doing shows at the rack and touch and feel and try on and style women and all that connectedness. And we had to go virtual. And all you need to do to make women cranky is to try to get them to learn technology. Oh my goodness. So we had, Little Miss Cranky Pants times hundreds in 3 different countries. So it was a messy season, but I will say my proudest season, because by mid-April, the women in our organization had pivoted. They had gone through the 6 steps of accepting a new idea, from total rejection, I'm never doing that, I quit, just angry, to partial acceptance, to partial assimilation, to total assimilation. And happy to tell you that many of my stylists had their best season of their entire career, not just their cabbie career, but their entire career.
That's incredible.
On this little virtual platform, because they did learn, they walked through the scary doors and they got through it. So yeah, really.
They adjusted. They adjusted.
Yeah. They allowed themselves to keep learning something new. And I guess that's the key also. Nobody has to be perfect, but we have to be willing to be a student again,
What draws you to the fashion industry the most?
It's a pretty exciting industry to be in. You feel like you're part of something that happens on a global scale, because it does. And then bringing it really down home is that fashion is the most common denominator, the most common language between women, the same as, I'm a sports lover, so I don't mean to be, sexist this way, but sports and men, that's the most common denominator. Men will get into an elevator, not knowing anybody, and it'll be crowded, the doors closed. Hey, what about them Dodgers? Or hey, what about them Padres? And everybody's chum, you know. The same with women. They get into an elevator of strangers and they go, oh, cute shoes. And by the time those doors open on the third floor, they're best friends. I mean, that's just women, right? So it's a really easy business to be in because there's an automatic connection. And then I told you before about, you know, the connection between this and how a woman feels. So yeah, keeps me in it.
What have you seen in women as a change internally through fashion? Because I know you started by saying you didn't like it in high school because it was all about the outside.
Yeah.
How has it been different for you and your organizations and the people that you work with?
Well, probably the main thing is approaching fashion more organically for each person individually. You know, we don't have to be a fashionista, and we don't have to have a perfect figure, and we don't have to look the way we perceive in America, whatever, you know, magazine we think is this country's perception of beauty. You know, we've migrated well past that. And so just learning over the years different fashion personalities, how to dress your body type so that I can really help women feel their best no matter their size, shape, age, or fashion personality. When I can get those four things, you know, homogenized together for a woman, she becomes her authentic self. She begins understanding why she always felt sort of uncomfortable before, and now she's not only comfortable in her own skin, but she's showing up in her best possible light. So that probably is, you know, really enriching. And then, as you know, one of the heartbeat of, for me in fashion, is being able to work with women whose lives have been interrupted. So my career has really invested in women that have been homeless, coming out of incarceration, homeless for a lot of reasons, domestic violence. I work with several shelters that way, drug addiction, and women who have been able to give themselves a second chance. I work with organizations and am a member of organizations that all feed into that, like Seroptimus International, the Barnabas Group, Assistance League. And then even in Cabby, one of my, like the heartbeat of my business, is this thing right here. Let me just grab it. Happy to tell you about this one. So I have this little postcard. It's actually a Cabby card, a thank you card, but I keep it on my desk in a little picture frame. It just says, believe in the difference you make. Because I always say to the women, we do something so simple that it's part of a huge, big ripple effect around the world. Because we have something called the Heart of Cabby Foundation, and all good companies have a foundation. So I don't mean to be just talking about Cabby. It happens to be what I'm in, right? And adding Color Street recently, who has another, you know, they've built generosity into their marketing plan. So same thing in that company. But anyway, so this little plaque right here is called the Heart of Cabby Award, and it's a beautiful tree with bronze hands holding a heart made by this artist. Well, so this award means that I lead the organization in the Cabby universe that funded the most microloans for women in developing countries in a season. And proud to say that our organization has earned this award every season since they started it. So I have every one of those plaques, because what it means to us is that not only, you know, the clothes are great, but I always say, you know, beyond beautiful clothes, people that purchase Cabby, their dollars are making a beautiful difference in the lives of women around the world. And then when someone starts a business with a foundation, with a company that has a foundation like this, whatever company it is, it's like a cord of three strands, which we know is so strong. A cord of three strands is not easily broken. So I have my business. I offer my business opportunity to you, Rima, and you say yes, like you did in the jockey days, and we become two strands. And Cabby funds a microloan for a woman in a developing country not to start a cabbie business. That wouldn't translate. But we get the story of this woman's life and the water well that she started or the school that she started. And when you change a woman's life and give her an opportunity to make an income, do you know how many generations that changes? Far different. I mean, these are not my words. These are statistics that anyone can look up. The impact of changing a woman's life income-wise and getting her independent through education and stepping up will change far more lives than when a man has that opportunity. It's kind of like the moment of lift. If you've read Melinda Gates' new book, it's all about that. So the Heart of Cabbie Foundation is what keeps me inspired, moving forward and growing forward the work around the world. Yeah, that was a long answer, but
I love that answer because it had so
it.
many nuggets in it for people that are listening to do something that is
Bigger
not
than
just
you.
for you. Yes, much bigger than you,
Bigger.
because we're not living on this planet alone. We live in a
Oh my goodness. And that's what I love about what you're doing, Rima, is that, you know, we're even right now with the COVID thing, you know, when I'm cranky, you know, in the backyard, Steve and I having dinner out back because we're empty nesters now. Our youngest is 36. When we're just alone and I'm a little bit cranky about, you know, the conversations that are happening in the world, I say to him, you know what, everybody's got an opinion. Everyone's just out there arguing with each other. But if everyone would just shh and live a life worthy of the calling that they received, imagine if each of us did that. If we just let our life be our testimony, my goodness. So things like this, you know, when I'm not motivated to work, I take a look at this and I'm like, yeah, girl, get with it, because what you're doing makes a difference, you know?
Incredible what you're saying, because it's the truth of living a life that truly matters and really feeling like there's something to life besides making a living. You're actually making a life. You're creating a life, not just for you, but for everyone that you touch. I remember one of my best days in jockeying. I don't know if I've ever shared this with you. I was doing a show at someone's house, and one of the ladies was just sitting back, almost like not listening at all. And I thought, she's just not interested. So I went on and did the show, and at the break time, she approaches me, and she was just challenged internally in how she felt about herself and didn't want to be in front of the other women trying on things or learning about stuff. And I took the time and spent the time with her. It was incredible just seeing the change in her, how she lit up when we did a couple of outfits that made her feel like she is on top of the world. And she became a fantastic, and I think that was the biggest change for me in my career in that direct selling world. It didn't become about the clothing anymore. It became about seeing the women that are there and what is it that they need. So that was really interesting to see that through fashion. And it kind of backed up my ideology of you got to work on the human being for it to get better. No matter what industry we're in, whatever we're doing, individually we have to work on making that person a better version of themselves so that they're better off. So fashion to me was a blessing because you know my background and I already had my own challenges in life. So it was a blessing to step outside of me and look at someone else's life and how is it impacted. So I love everything you've shared so far for people to understand the nugget. What would you like to see going forward for yourself and for your team, for all the individuals you impact?
Well, gosh, that's a great question. As far as my team, I mean, I think we're just on a great trajectory of growth. So that isn't, you know, like I said, I've always been I'm a big concept person. So I know where we're going in the way of growth and in the 3 countries. So that vision is, you know, not anything new, I should say. But I guess you know what, I don't really have an answer for that, Rima. I think that they're on a good path, and they're what you just said, for the women that are with me in Cabby anyway, Color Street would be a different journey. But the women in Cabby, because it's a pretty high performance company, it's not for the hobbyist per se, it's for the ones who really want a fashion business. What you just shared is what they talk about over and over again, that the magic moment when somebody looks in the mirror and just says, wow, I haven't felt this good in, I can't remember when.
That gave me chills, you even saying it.
Yeah. And so we kind of joke about that, and sometimes it's a very emotional moment, as you know, okay? People who haven't been in that moment might not understand what we're talking about. But for some women, that's a very emotional moment. And so I lighten it up by just saying, I know, boy, I'd buy you a beer. Just kind of joking with her to say, yeah, you look amazing, and I get that you feel it, but you probably don't want to have your emotional breakdown right here, right now. Yeah, but it's a magical moment. Right now, I've got another fish to fry. I think yeah, of course you know this. So another part of my life, Steve and I, is that, well, several parts. We're grandparents now, so that is the season that, oh my goodness, you talk about a magic season in life. It is all that it's cracked up to be. So another great thing about working for yourself is you can really, flex your schedules. So, but that we love. But another big part of our life is we got involved in a little town in Arizona called Bisbee, and we have 2 hospitality properties on Main Street in Bisbee, 2 boutique hotels. That has just been an amazing adventure. Again, I listened to my intuition maybe one too many times, because I convinced Steve that we had to buy the second place down the street. Let me just give you all a news flash. You don't want to be in hospitality right now. Did COVID stop the music on travel? Yes, it did. So right now we're kind of, just figuring out our next move there. Of course, we're in that for the long game, but kind of hemorrhaging cash at the moment to keep all of our employees in place. And, and I know that it will pick up. But again, it's just one of those things that you got to just stay super calm and logical and just say, okay, so what can we do with these beautiful, properties? And so you'll see a little bit more of me on social media for those places. Yeah. So
I love how you're saying that stay calm and taking on what can I do right now, instead of spinning on things that aren't in your control, no matter what.
Yeah. Well, the other funny thing too is that, marketing or casting a vision, getting a vision, listening to your inner voice, all of that is the creative side of our brain. Right? I think most people know that. And that it's impossible for those cylinders to be firing when this side of the brain is worried about detail, and you're getting all in the weeds with the how-tos. Just float above it and let the new picture emerge. And it's just there's more joy in that journey, Now, the interesting thing is that I'm married to somebody who lives in the weeds. Okay, he's a detail guy. Well, I guess that's
a great guy.
What'd you say?
He's a great guy.
He's a great guy, and I guess thank goodness there's one of those under this roof, because I get a vision, and I immediately see it in its completed form. Like I act as if, because I feel as if I've already gotten there. And I don't worry about the how to get there, because I know I'm going to show up for myself. So, I'm a hard worker, smart worker. Well, Steve does the opposite. He can't get the big vision, even though I cast it for him. He can't get the vision. He gets stuck in the, well, and then what? And then what? And then what? And we have a good thing going on. So I can look at him and just say, you know what, sweetie, you're just sucking the living life out of me. Because I'm up here with the vision, and he's, so we have learned to navigate that, for sure. And that's good. That's good to be able to laugh about, whether it's a business partner and you get to sleep with them at night. Really, it's been pretty funny in our household a lot of times because of that.
I love that you're saying those things, Marijane, because a lot of people get so caught up in the little details of how to do things. Plus, you said something so significant that this is your spouse. You you get to live with them and you get to also be with them. They're your partner, and you do things in a way that you don't disrespect each other. I'd love for you to touch on that in the mentality of how you treat people and how you came about to that thinking. Because I get to see you in the Soroctonist phase, I got to see you in the jockey phase, I get to see you in all these phases that most women or most even men can't fathom being in so many lanes at one time. Yet you get to be a full businesswoman running your company, your own fashion portion of it. You're still a mom, a wife, a grandmother, a philanthropist. So take us through that, how you treat people, and how did that thinking come about?
Gosh, I think that just, who we are naturally. I think I'm looking at who you've got on your wall behind you. Okay. And I would say, riding on the coattails of greats like that. I just believe that we all were created in God's image. And so there isn't one that's better than the other. When it comes to, there's a great story in the Bible about, all the parts of the body and how we need every part. Some people elevate themselves because they're a teacher or a professor or a president or instead of a janitor or whatever. And when we look at the gifts that God gave us, every single one, no matter what role you play in life, every single one is equal. So I think I just get that. And I don't know what else to say about that. As far as loving people, along with the fact that I've been well loved, for sure, in a professional way, I feel the most fortunate of anybody because I've had wonderful mentors that poured into me early on. So professionally, I learned not necessarily how to treat people. I learned how to preserve myself as I was treating people respectfully. Because one of the things that's a danger zone, actually, I was just talking to a leader earlier today, kind of a danger zone for women in particular in our industry. Or if you own your own business, no matter what it is, if you're an entrepreneur, burnout happens to everybody when we do not listen to our inner self and pay attention to our boundaries. And as women, because we're givers by nature, that's one of the best things about a woman is she's a lover, a giver, a nurturer, all of those things. But that very thing becomes what ruins us. Early on in my career, when it was clear that I was going to have a large group, or I always say, when you're the leader of a small nation, I had someone pouring into me and she gave me great advice. She was the president of Weekenders at that time. And she had been the businesswoman of the year in Chicago for, I think, 3 years. She's just Rosemary Redmond, just a beautiful lady and friend to this day. And Rosemary didn't even know me, but I was growing at quite a pace. And I was back in Chicago for a leadership retreat with her. And she looked at me and she said, I'm going to give you some advice. She said 2 things. Don't do for one that you cannot do for 100. Now, when you really think about that, and I listened, I am a learner. And what she was saying to me is, I didn't know it at the time, but she was saying, girl, you are on the fast track here to have a huge business, and you're going to lose yourself and your life and your family and your sanity if you don't learn how to have boundaries. So do not do for one that you can't do for 100. So 25 years in, I don't feel burnout. I love what I do because my boundaries are so clear, That's one thing. And then the other thing I learned from Pat Pearson, who is a psychotherapist. She works with women leaders usually in direct selling, but that's not where she started out. She wrote the book Stop Self-Sabotage, which is excellent for anyone to read, especially if you do struggle a little bit with always getting close to success and then something happens and it usually seems legit why you didn't succeed. But if there's a pattern in your life, it's self-sabotaging. And she is a psychotherapist that wrote that book. She's written several others, but that's one to start with. Anyway, Pat worked with me for a while. She lived here at Newport Coast, and she wanted to invest in me. I mean, I thought, how fun is that? So we used to do a tape of the month, for leaders and stuff kind of like this, but only on a CD. Anyway, she gave me some great advice, and she said, the way most people burn out who own their own business is they overgive to underperforming. Overgiving to underperforming. And we can see that in our lives, whether it's with our family, whether it's in business, if it's a friendship. And I don't mean friends have to perform, but when you have those people in life, and there are plenty of them, we can love them from a distance, but those people in life that just always are a victim, they're never going to elevate themselves higher than that, because it's all, as you know, it's all up here. And yet we try and we try and we try to bring them along, and it ruins us in the process, so things like that really helped. And then another one that I have a huge amount of respect for, and I learned a lot from her book. It wasn't her book, it was a book about the Mary Kay business. I mean, Mary Kay was an amazing woman. And a gentleman wrote a book called More Than a Pink Cadillac. It's excellent because he talks about Mary Kay's philosophy of expecting excellence out of people. And so I let people know I expect excellence because I expect it out of myself first. And in this book, Mary Kay talked about the fact that if we don't expect excellence out of someone, it's actually the worst way to love them. Because why would we accept someone being mediocre when we see so much more in them? And so it's not like a have to thing to be excellent. It's they want to, because if we see a talent or a character trait or potential in somebody and they don't see it for themselves, if we help them see that, they live into it. I mean, I don't know if you've ever heard this, and I don't even remember where I heard it, but it's really, really good because it's so true. And I raised my kids with this, and they're all amazing. They did go through some pathways of their own, but they're amazing today, knock on wood. Here's the saying: I'm not who I think I am, and I'm not who you think I am. I am who I think you think I am. Now you think about that for a minute. That's powerful. That means when you believe in somebody, they begin believing in themselves. And guess what? They start living into the potential that you see in them. And it's just like when you have on the flip side of that, I had a younger brother that really struggled. He was labeled the bad one when he was a little boy. And he was ADD, ADHD, and anything in between. But because of just the way God wired him, he got labeled that in school. So what do you think he did? Well, he lived into that. He was the best, worst little one he could be. Right? Mm-hmm. And one of my grandsons, he's homeschooling for sure, because he's amazing and gifted and otherworldly and way too active for a classroom. So we're not sending him to a school that where all of a sudden, because he learns differently, that he's going to get that label early on. It's what happens, so I'm not who you think I am, and I'm not who I think I am. I am who I think you think I am. It's amazing. It's a game changer in people's lives. Yeah.
I have to tell the audience and the listeners, I've been at the end of one of your conversations because you saw in me the potential and the leadership that at the time I still wasn't feeling confident because of what I've lived through. And I've been at the end of that conversation where it was flat out, I love you. You need to step up or step out. And if you're going to step up, I'm behind you all the way.
Yeah.
The words weren't exactly that, but knowing that there's someone that recognizes in you and allows you to grow to your potential,
Yeah.
not labeling, but giving you that opportunity. And again, that was another turning point for me in my career with Jockey to start to really impact and become bigger to where I am. And that was really a driving force. And that was the point that I loved you, but I loved you even more because you saw in me what I couldn't see.
Yeah.
And you gave me that chance.
You
You gave me that chance. Yeah, so amazing. I love, there's so many nuggets in what you just said. I hope people and listeners really get out of it that you want someone to learn to fish.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You don't want them to just eat the fish. You want them to learn to fish because they can.
Because they can. And they're all going to do it differently.
Yes.
And it's all good, right? And again, just going back to it, I mean, it has to do with how we raise our kids and how we love our friends and we all have a different bend, you know. And I remember when raising our 4 kids, they're all very different. And if you try to lead people all the same way, or you try to raise children all the same way, you're going to lose 90% of them because they're not going to relate. So there's a verse that says, raise a child up in the way they're naturally bent, in the way they should go, and they'll never depart from it. And a lot of people think that has to do with discipline, and it doesn't. What it has to do with is recognize the way this one and that one and this one are wired, and then guide them in the way that their natural bend is, the way they're wired, where their giftedness is, where their interests lie. Pay attention to the people around you and notice their gifts. And then when you nudge them along, you know, nudging is a soft word of saying I kicked you along. True confessions, I'm the tough love girl, but it's love. It's love. Yeah. That's the key. But when you nudge people onto the path that you see for them, because they're already exposing that, they just don't have the confidence yet, but it's showing up in their life. I mean, that they never depart from it. I mean, look at you now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I get to publicly acknowledge thank you and gratitude for everything that you do. I'm speaking on behalf of women that you lead today, on behalf of organizations that you touch, that and make an impact just by you caring that everyone becomes their best self. Allow them to be who they are, not what we think they need to be who they are. Yeah. Marijane, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
Oh, well, let's see, I'm right here.
And when you're not right here, how would you like them to reach out to you?
Oh, yes, that would be so fun. I'd love to meet some of your connections, you know, that would be great. Continue the conversation or whatever. So I'm on Facebook and Instagram, and it's Marijane. I have a unique spelling of my name, but it's Marijane, Marijane Relth. I'm on Facebook. We could be friends. I have 2 business groups on Facebook, private groups. One that's Your Best Style with Marijane, if you want things all about style, and another one that's Color Girl with my color street. And then I live here in Fire Mountain area of Oceanside. So any which way you want to get a hold of me, I'll respond. I'm a real people person. Yeah.
I wanted to throw that in there so people can get a hold of you.
Oh,
and
thanks. Yeah.
I also want, is there anything that you wanted to share that I didn't get to ask you yet, that you go, I wish Rima had asked that?
Oh, I can't think of it. I mean, I didn't come thinking of having any preconceived ideas. I guess this is another thing that's kind of weird maybe about me. I don't know. People have told me it's weird. I just show up. You know, I didn't have any idea what we were going to talk about, or didn't, I'm here and now, I'm a here and now girl. So I don't know what we maybe should have talked about.
I love that. You're here and now. And that is the message to most people, is show up in
just
where
be
you
present.
are. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, you know what?
Mm.
When it comes, because this is a little bit, this is kind of a business thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, people, all right, there's a lesson that I do share, because I feel like it gave me a leg up, when I transitioned from court reporting into this. There were no transferable skills. I always joke about the fact that this is a lot lighter of a profession, than looking at autopsy photos and, hearing murder trials. This is a little bit, fashion's a little more fun. But one of the things that I realized was key to growing a business, especially with, being in a marketing business, with people, anything with people, is that it never matters what we say. It only matters what people hear.
Mm.
And that, I think this is how most people communicate, meaning they don't at all. They don't at all. Because everyone's talking and assuming that the person they're talking to is hearing what they said. But it is never what you think. And the reason I know this is that, have you ever wondered why there are so many wrong, just surprisingly, shockingly wrong verdicts that happen in a courtroom? Well,
Yeah.
it's because, I'll tell you why. I was the fly on the wall all those years. So I'm sitting there, with my little machine, and I'm facing the jury box always. As a court reporter, I'm facing the jury. I got the judge over here, the attorney's there, okay, and the witness stand here. And let's say it's a murder trial. Well, the attorneys have done their job, so they come to trial after maybe a year or 2 years of research, whatever, and they've got every question written down what they're going to ask. They're going to lead every witness the way they think they're going to. It's all like locked and loaded before they even get there, right? Mm-hmm. For the most part, whether in not just a murder trial, anything. So they start doing that, and I, being the fly on the wall, I can see that an attorney, and maybe he's one of my good friends, maybe he's a client of mine, and I see him doing a great job leading this witness a certain way, and I can see that the jury, I can read their faces, and I can see the jury going the complete opposite direction of where this attorney thinks they're going. Total, like he's digging himself a grave. And he thinks he's winning the case. So if they were my friends on a break, I would say to the attorney, ask this question. And he'd argue with me. It usually was a he, they're more stubborn, just saying. And he'd argue with me. He'd be like, I already asked that. And I'd say, ask it again. No, I already asked that. I'd say, suit yourself. The smart ones would ask it again in a different way. And everything would change, because see, what he was saying and what he was saying or she was saying, they weren't hearing. So that lesson has made my professional life far more profitable. Sorry. And worst thing is it's potential spam on there. Anyway, that I think has made my business life more profitable, because I get that what I'm saying is not what they're hearing. So ask things like, you'll say something and then just say, so, tell me how you would respond to that, or, what's your response to that, or what do you think about that, or I'd love your perspective on that. And usually what you'll get back is not in line with where you thought it was going. So just being a better listener, right?
I got two things out of what you said: being a better listener and being observant.
Yeah.
Really, you were so observant in what's happening that you were able to notice that the communication is not happening.
Total miss. Yeah. Yeah. Amazing.
That is incredible.
Steve and we just had one of those in the kitchen this morning when we were having our coffee. I asked him a question, he answered, and I said, wow, that's so weird. That's the opposite of what I would have thought. And we went on to something else. Well, a couple hours later, we came back to it. He answered in a way that I heard different. So it wasn't, the answer wasn't the opposite of what I thought. It was that I heard opposite than what he thought. I don't know. I should have given you, anyway, didn't mean to confuse you there, but it just happened this morning in the kitchen. And once I realized that he answered differently, or that I heard him wrong, or interpreted wrong what he said, I looked at him and I started laughing and I said, this is how wars start. Literally. This is it. Yeah.
It's totally true. I think that's where a lot of breakdowns happen in life, in relationships.
Wow.
Is that simple misconception of what was said or wasn't said.
Yeah.
That could be cleared up by simply asking of them, what did they hear? What's the response?
Yeah, or what do you think I said?
Yeah. Perfect gems. Perfect gems. Marijane, I want to thank you so much for showing up, for being present, for everything that you've shared with our listeners. I so appreciate you. I know we could talk on for hours and hours.
Thank you, Rima. I had so much fun with you this morning.
Thank you. Thank you. To our listeners, remember, guys, your attitude is your altitude. So when you begin to change your attitude about anything and everything that's happening within you and around you, you will begin to get to the altitudes that you want in your life. And everything that is happening within you is vibrating out around you and to everyone else. So that's the way to get better in life, is for you to pay attention to your attitude and what you're doing. Marijane, thank you again. Love you.
Love you.
Appreciate you.
Thank you for joining us for Attitude of Altitude podcast. You can find us on social media, on Instagram and Facebook under Planet of One. Please come join us. Leave us comments. Let us know if there's something specific that you'd like us to cover. We are here for you to make sure that you become the best versions of yourself. Your attitude determines your altitude in life. Thank you again for joining us.